All right, welcome to another episode of Agentic AI development using the ADT Model Context Protocol MCP server for Visual Studio Code. So we already know, if you are new to this channel, we already know that SAP provided or released this extension that makes it possible for us to perform certain functionalities on Visual Studio Code, which are some of the key features. You can go through this. We have already covered this in our previous video, where you can, create ABAP object classes, create CDS views, and create ABAP RESTful application programming model. So there are also a lot of things you can do in Visual Studio Code. You can use a debugger, you can do unit test integration, you can do ABAP test cockpit. There's also transport management and so on and so forth. So if you need more information about this, you can watch my previous videos. All right. In this video, we have 2 servers and 1 agent, and we're going to look more into the agentic AI assisted programming. All right. And we're going to see how to edit the ABAP program that already exists, and also there are certain guardrails that we need to set. Okay. So what this means is, of course, if you have seen this SAP's RAP 130 workshop, what we are going to do now will look familiar, but this workshop actually runs on BTP. It runs on Business Technology Platform with Copilot. And for we are going to run on our local system, which is F4H with Claude Code. So usually the Visual Studio Code comes with its own MCP server, and it has some tools that comes with that server. So I'll be explaining to you the difference between the SAP MCP server and the MCP server that I'll be using in certain scenarios or cases. So by the end of this video, you can also have the same setup running, and more importantly, you will know exactly what it can do and what it cannot do in your system. Okay, so now let's look at the setup. How would the setup be like or look like? A big shout out to all those who sent their feedbacks, your comments. They are actually an inspiration and a motivation to do more. Thank you for your comments. And of course, thank you to the new subscribers. And if you're new, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Help me to achieve the next milestone of 1,000 subscribers. I really appreciate your support. And 1,000 subscribers in the SAP space is not a small feat. It's just like me sitting or standing in front of 1,000 people and then delivering a speech. So you can imagine how big that is. So kindly support this channel and help me reach a wider audience. Thank you for subscribing. So we're going to have 2 servers and 1 agent. So here's how the setup is going to look. So first we have the Claude Code, and we have this Claude Code inside the Visual Studio Code. So I'm using Claude Code extension. And then we have the SAP ADT MCP server. And so this SAP ADT MCP server also has some tools that it uses. And then I have an additional ADT source MCP server to perform 2 things. I will show you in the next slide. Now, I showed you the SAP MCP server. So what the SAP server does is you can list destinations. So what are the available destinations on the system? You can create objects. You can also do an ABAP generate wrap business object. You can manage transports. You can actually create transport requests, and it can activate objects. So I will show you this in the documentation that SAP provides. So right here, you can see the model context protocol tools, the tools that is available for you. You can list the destinations. What are the available destinations on my system? You can do create objects. You can also do ABAP creation get object types details. So what this does is it gets details required for creating an ABAP object, such as name and description. All right. So there are other tools here. You can see run validation. You can see activate objects. But for my server, for my MCP, I actually restricted this. So I don't want the MCP to be able to activate objects. And the reason is simple: to set a guardrail. All right. And we also have transport create. We have transport get. We have transport unified difference. So this is actually very interesting. It generates a unified diff for all objects in a given transport request. And you can also do ABAP run unit tests and so on and so forth. So we have all these tools available for you. ABAP run ATC. And here's what my MCP server gives you. You can read object source and you can also write object source. So that's the whole surface area. So what it means is it creates objects and it generates wrap business objects. All right, so we can actually check in Visual Studio Code the MCP tools that we have. So if you don't know how to install the MCP tools or activate them, you can check my previous videos. I've covered them. So, but one interesting thing about the Claude is that if I have Visual Studio Code open, all right, and if I'm connected to a destination, let's say this one. So right here, you can see that I'm connected to this development server. I have the Claude extension here, but it is not possible, of course, for me to run the Claude code inside the same workspace. So it said a system error occurred, no such file or directory. So there's actually a reason for this. So the way or the workaround is that when you have your workspace, your projects open, when you have your projects open, you can then open another Visual Studio Code workspace, which is what I have here. All right. So when you have another Visual Studio Code open, then you can open your Claude Code here. And just click, your Claude Code is open, and we can open the toggle bar here. So Claude Code you can select, and then you get the possibility to chat. All right. So this way you can access the ABAP development system. Of course, by this time your MCP is already activated and connected. So if you want me to show you how I did this, you can also leave a comment in the comment section and comment Claude Code. So there's another way you can check the available MCP servers that we have. So what you can do is that you can just on the terminal, you can run /MCP. So I can open here, right here, terminal. Let's minimize this guy here, minimize this one here. And then you can see that I actually already launched Claude Code on my terminal. So if you do not see this, you can actually do Claude, just type Claude on the terminal and then this is loaded. All right. So to check the MCP servers that we have, you can just do /MCP and then you can see manage servers. So if I hit on enter, you can see right here that I have two MCP servers here. So I have the ADT SAP and the ADT source MCP. So this ADT SAP is the one provided by SAP. So if you enter, you can see view tools and you can see all the tools that are available, tools for ADT, get results, run, and etc. All right. So I'll go back and then we can check the other MCP server. What are the tools that we have there? So just click on enter and then we can see here the read object source. So what does it do? It reads the current source of an existing ABAP object class. Interface, program, CDS definition, behavior definition, service definition, or a class local test classes include via class tests, all right, from a whitelisted development SAP system. So there is no package restriction. It is readable from any package. So this helps us to, read object source. And of course, we have to create some what we call a whitelist for our destinations. And for me, I just have one destination here, which is this A4H_100 _ my username. All right. So you have seen the first tool. So the second one is the write object source. And what it does is it writes new source for an existing ABAP object or a whitelisted development SAP system. So it locks the objects, writes the source as an inactive version, then it runs a syntax check and always unlocks afterwards. And I actually want to be precise about this because it's the single most important design decision in this whole thing. So it is not disabled actually. So if we go to the available tools for the SAP that we are going to be using, it was intentional that I removed the activate tool. So for my tool, there is no activate tool. So here, ABAP activate objects. So there is no possibility for my MCP server to activate objects. So that means I have to check any object that is created and manually activate this for security reasons, of course, and for you to know what is happening in the system. So if it cannot activate, then what does a write object actually do? The first thing is that it will lock the object, it will write it as an inactive version, and then run a syntax check afterwards, unlock the object. So this matters more than it actually sounds, because if the tool fails over halfway through, maybe because of network drops or the syntax check explodes, whatever happens, it will still unlock. And that's because you don't want a situation where an object is locked for several days because there was some syntax errors. All right, now we have our MCP servers, the two of them. You can see the ADT source MCP. And if I still check on the terminal, I use escape. We can see the two of them, ADT SAP and ADT source MCP. So we'll say have two of them connected, and I have my Claude Code extension and Visual Studio Code by the right. And so what I want to do is that I want the MCP to read a class. All right, so I'm going to ask the agent to actually read one of the class that we have. So what we can do is to just write a prompt, and we can say it should read. So we say it should read this class ZCL24 underscore leaf underscore manager. All right. And the two MCP servers that we have, the Claude decide when to use them. So if we have a situation where we need to read and write, then Claude is going to use the ADT source MCP, because we have two tools there that can read objects and also can write. Other functionalities that SAP provides, you can have them, or you can see them in the ADT SAP MCP server, as I have shown earlier, right? So one thing I need to mention is that the ADT source MCP, if we go inside, view the tools, so the write object, I've ensured certain rails, which there were 4 guardrails that were also implemented along this ADT source MCP. And if you want to know those guardrails and how to use them, just comment guardrails in the comment section. All right, so let's ask our agent to read from this class that we've already created. So I click on enter and see that it is celebrating it to read ABAP class source. So you can see the first tool it pulls out is ABAP list destination. So it's looking at the destination that we have on our system, which is the A4H underscore 100 underscore my username. All right. And then it went further to use ADT. Let me go back here to use ADT source MCP, which is the MCP server that I added to the already existing MCP server. And the functionality is that it should read object source. And so look at it, actually found that class in our system, and it says, okay, here's the source of Z class 24 leaf manager, a leaf request management class. It exposes 5 public methods. So it gave me the methods that were running the class: create request, approve requests, reject requests, get emp requests, get pending requests. All data lives in this table, zleaf underscore request underscore 24. And then I read it as is, and it didn't change anything. So of course the MCP server just read the class. So, and then of course it says some things, what it noticed about the class, a few things worth flagging. It just said some things about some errors that it noticed and want me to fix any of this. Note, I can only save an inactive version. You have to review and activate it in VS Code. So if you want this error to be fixed, then go ahead and do it. So this is one of the powerful things about this MCP server that SAP provides, and also the one that I've created, which is to read and also to write. All right. So of course, if we go to Eclipse, let's check the class. You can do Ctrl+Shift+A and you can search for an existing class. So we have this class here, ZCL24 leaf manager. So let's open this, and then we have this. So it's actually active implementation. All right. Okay. So we could see what our MCP server, what Claude returned was accurate. And then we can go further to this point to continue looking at the request. All right. So this ZCL Leave Manager class is responsible for employee leave management. So there are methods to approve requests, and then there's also method to create a request, and of course get employee requests, one of the methods we have in this class, get pending requests, reject requests, and so on and so forth. All right. So we'll proceed with how we can use Claude to actually make changes to this class. Of course, if you are watching so far and you're new to this channel, please kindly subscribe to my channel. Help me reach that next milestone of 1,000 subscribers. Thank you for those who have subscribed. So basically we have 2 MCP servers. There are 4 protective gates, and then there's 1 human at the activation and review step. So we're going to see how the ABAP, how the Claude AI is going to be editing the ABAP code that already exists. Stay tuned, don't go anywhere yet. So like I said in the previous part, we need to edit the ABAP that already exists. And to do this, we need a real class on our development system. And then we have this class, which we have the ZCL24_leave_manager class. So this class we already see in the previous slides. And our agent was able to read the class and what it does. And of course, this class is all about leave request management. So the functionalities is that you can create a leave request. They can also be approved by the manager and they can be rejected by the manager. And of course, we have that class inside this package, and I am the owner of the package. Now, so we want to enhance the functionality of this application, and the task is that we need to reject the leave that starts in the past. So if the leave starts in the past, the date of the leave starts in the past, then it should be rejected. So which means that current date or the start date of the leave should not be greater than the end date of the leave. All right. So now let's open this in Visual Studio Code. So let's open our class. You can do Ctrl+Shift+A to search for the class name, and the class of interest is this. So we have it here, ZCL24. Let's open it. So I'm just going to close other tabs. All right. And so here is the class. We already saw this in Eclipse. So of course, in the create request method, we already have one role here, which checks that the date is before or equal to the end date. So we want to extend this functionality of the create request further. And this is actually something that someone can ask for. It's small, and we want our AI to be able to read it, change it, review it, of course, but to activate it, the human or the developer has to be responsible for activating the class. So there has to be a proper review. So nothing goes directly into activated object without a proper review. And that's one of the advantages of my current setup. All right. So like we saw, our ZCL24 Leave Manager class has this create request method already, and the current rule is that it checks that start date is before or equal to end date. So there's no check that makes it impossible for a request to be created with a start date that is already in the past. So the idea is we need to reject leave that starts in the past. So if the start date is less than the current date, which is SY datum, the SAP system keywords for current date. Of course, with clean code, there is a different way of getting the date now. So, but let's just stick with this for this moment. So if the start date is less than the current date, raise invalid date. So this is the intended solution to our task. However, we already know this, but assume we don't know this. We are going to ask the Claude to actually implement this functionality for us in our class. All right, so let's try this. Remember, I told you, okay, let's try this. So we go to the workspace for Claude inside the Visual Studio Code, and we are going to type in the prompt, right? All right, so let's paste the prompt here, and the prompt says, okay, in this class, okay, so in ZCL24 underscore leave manager on our system. So we are assuming that we want it to find the class and the method. So add the validation to create to the method we have already called create request. A leave request must not start in the past. So reuse the existing invalidate exceptions rather than adding a new one, and put the new guard directly after the existing date check. Leave the surrounding comments numbering alone. All right, so let's send this prompt. Is processing. Okay, so it said I will add past date guard directly after the existing date check, reusing invalid dates and leaving the numbered comments untouched. So it's doing it, it's cooking, and then it went further to use our ADT source MCP write object source. All right, so now it says object ZCL24 leave manager is not a local object, and this destination has allowed transport objects false. So this is one of the guardrails that the Claude should not be able to make edits to an object. All right, so the write tool can only be able to make changes to temporary packages. So the write was blocked by destination configuration and not by anything in the code. Okay, and what does it say further? So there are two solutions that it gave me, either for me to update my allow lists, or I should just add the new functionality code directly. You can see that it says a leave request must not start in the past. So if IV underscore start date, the importing parameter, is less than the current date, then raise invalid date exception. So is this easy, right? And this is also how you can also use it for complex task, right? So it's a design pattern, and I'm not going to change the allow transport objects equals to true setting that I made. So like I said, if you want more information about this, leave a comment in the comment section and say guardrails. For watching, and thank you for subscribing so far, and we continue. So since our MCP server is not allowed to have access to transportable objects, what I did was to create a replica of this class in the temporary package, and then I will write a prompt to Claude to make changes to this temporary package. All right, so let's go to VS Code, Visual Studio Code. So I went to the command palette, and so this is a temporary package that I created. It's a copy of the leave manager class, so we can still see the create request, and then we can see our method create request. So at this point you still have just a single guard here. So now we are going to paste the same prompt, but now with the class name as a temporary class. So let's open the Claude workspace in Visual Studio Code right here. So I'm going to paste the prompt. So in ZC Leaf Manager demo, the same thing, just that the name of the class was changed. So let's send this. Deliberating, it's using the ADT source MCP. It's first read the object, first read the class, then I will add the past date guard directly after the existing date check and leaving the numbered contents untouched. Imagining done. So now you see it's a done. The new guard was written to this class as an inactive version. So even though the changes have been made, it's still in the inactive version, and then the syntax check came back clean. All right, so we can go to Visual Studio Code to the class and see if these changes were made. Voila! And there you have it. You see that it added a new guard, a new clause to our create request, but it is inactive. So usually the SAP ADT MCP server has the possibility for the MCP or for the Claude to activate objects, but for us, or for mine setup, I have to deactivate the possibility to activate objects. So I have to activate this object myself. So right here, you can select Ctrl F3. So it's saying activated and generated successfully. So this class is now activated. So you can see one of the benefits of using Claude AI. So it will make your work faster. So we can actually read, change, review, and activate. All right. So in subsequent video, we can also look at how to break our MCP server and how the guardrails are fixed. So if you enjoyed the series so far, give me a like, leave your comments, subscribe to this channel, and see you in the next video.